May 8, 1960, Venezuelan businessman Juan Sanoja made a clandestine trip to Ciudad Trujillo in the Dominican Republic, using Haiti as a stopover point to avoid suspicion. During this trip, Sanoja established initial contacts with the Dominican government, led by dictator Rafael Trujillo, to secure support for a plan to overthrow Venezuelan President Rómulo Betancourt. Betancourt, who had assumed the presidency of Venezuela in 1959 after the fall of dictator Marcos Pérez Jiménez, had implemented economic policies that displeased sectors of the Venezuelan oligarchy, of which Sanoja was a key representative. Upon his return to Venezuela in early June, Sanoja met with his conspiratorial group composed of 8 businessmen who shared the goal of overthrowing Betancourt. During the meeting, Sanoja reported that Trujillo was interested in the plan and had offered military support in the form of weapons and ammunition. Encouraged by this backing, the conspirators began planning Betancourt's overthrow. On June 17, 1960, Sanoja and several of his conspiratorial partners boarded a Venezuelan C-46 aircraft owned by the airline Rutas Aéreas Nacionales Sociedad Anónima for a direct flight to Ciudad Trujillo. The plane belonged to a relative of one of the conspirators who had $1 million debt with the Venezuelan government. The promise of pardoning this debt if Betancourt were overthrown became a key motivation for facilitating the use of the plane. During the flight, the pilot communicated with Dominican military air traffic control using a secret code, confirming that Sanoja and his accomplices were on board. Upon landing at President Trujillo Air Base in San Isidro, the Venezuelans were greeted by Dominican military personnel and transported to a meeting with Colonel Johnny Abes Garcia, head of Dominican intelligence, and Trujillo. In this meeting, the Venezuelans painted a skewed political picture of Venezuela to secure the weapons they needed. Trujillo not only offered his support, but also ordered the delivery of weapons and grenades from the Dominican army that were loaded onto the C-46 plane that had brought the conspirators. A key element of this plan was the dynamite and microwave detonator provided by Colonel Abes to Luis Cabrera Cifuentes, one of the leaders of the conspiratorial group. Cabrera had a specific plan to assassinate Betancourt using these explosives, revealing that there were disagreements within the conspiratorial group about how to eliminate the Venezuelan president. Before takeoff, a Dominican military intelligence service technician explained to Cabrera how to activate the remote detonator, ensuring the operation's success. On June 24, 1960, the plan was set in motion. Luis Cabrera Cifuentes and Yanez Bustamante parked the car bomb along the route where Betancourt's vehicle was supposed to pass. After placing the car in position, they both got into another car parked 300 meters away. When the presidential car passed by, the bomb exploded, but President Betancourt survived the attack with burns on his hands. Although the attack failed to achieve its goal, it became clear that the Dominican government was deeply involved, especially when, on June 24th, Dominican radio announced Betancourt's death as breaking news. The Venezuelan government reacted swiftly. Within hours, authorities captured several of those involved, who confessed under interrogation that they had received help from Trujillo. This triggered a major diplomatic conflict between the two countries. In response to the attack, the Venezuelan Air Force began planning Operation Lightning, a bombing mission targeting President Trujillo Air Base and the Ozama Fortress in Ciudad Trujillo. The B-39 bomber squadron, operating with 12 British-made Canberra B Mark II jets, was selected to carry out the mission. Each plane would carry 2 1,000-pound bombs, as these bombs could inflict the desired damage while still allowing the Canberras to return to Venezuela with enough fuel. The strategy was to fly at low altitude, bomb the targets, and escape at high speed to avoid pursuit by Dominican fighters, which could not match the Canberra's speed and altitude. However, the Venezuelan Air Force encountered a problem. The planes did not have the necessary bomb ejectors to drop the 1,000-pound bombs, delaying the mission. At the same time, they waited for these devices to arrive from the United States and the United Kingdom. Due to the delay, the Venezuelans considered using the B-25 bombers from the B-40 squadron, which were already equipped to carry bombs of that size. However, these planes had a shorter flight range and were in poor mechanical condition. Only 6 of the B-25 bombers were operational, and each could only carry 1 bomb to conserve fuel, putting them at a disadvantage against Dominican fighters. Meanwhile, Johnny Abes, who was already aware of the Venezuelan plans thanks to his network of spies within the Venezuelan military, placed the Dominican Air Force on high alert on June 27, 1960. However, the Dominican Republic lacked radar systems, making it difficult to intercept the attack. P-51 fighters and Vampire jets were distributed across different airfields to protect against a possible bombing, but the lack of technology made it hard to predict when the attack would occur. On June 28th, Betancourt received a warning from U.S. intelligence services about a possible Dominican airstrike targeting Venezuela's Caribbean oil fields. This plan, orchestrated by Johnny Abs, involved using 4 Dominican B-26 bombers to attack oil wells near the Caribbean coast. However, the B-26 had problems with their bomb release mechanisms, making the mission unlikely to succeed. Despite this, the Venezuelan Air Force alerted its F-86 Sabre and Vampire jets to defend against any Dominican incursion. Although Operation Lightning was never carried out, the diplomatic tensions between Venezuela and the Dominican Republic did not ease until U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower intervened, persuading Betancourt to abandon the military strategy in favor of economic sanctions against Trujillo. These sanctions, imposed by the OAS and supported by the United States, isolated the Dominican Republic and further weakened Trujillo's regime. By December 1960, the situation had deteriorated, so Trujillo began criticizing the United States in his radio broadcasts, seeking support from Cuba and the Soviet Union. But these efforts proved fruitless. However, a year later, in May 1961, Trujillo was assassinated by a group of his collaborators, supported by the CIA. Thank you for supporting our channel, Historia Más, and don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our videos and leave comments.